China is quietly taking control of the global economy. And while you're distracted by today's headlines, an economic empire is being built, brick by brick, deal by deal. Since joining the World Trade Organization in 2001, China promised to open its markets, but it did the exact opposite. Instead of integrating fairly, it built a powerful state-backed ecosystem, ensuring its domestic companies had an unbeatable edge over any foreign competition. While the West played by free market rules, Beijing was busy rewriting the playbook, hidden obscure but brutally effective. And in the middle of the silent takeover, one unexpected figure is gaining renewed relevance. Donald Trump, called irrational, crazy, impulsive. But did he see something no one else wanted to admit? This video is going to flip your entire worldview upside down. Subscribe now and type continue in the comments if you're ready to face an uncomfortable truth about the future of our planet. China's rise wasn't a coincidence. It was a meticulously engineered strategy. Upon joining the WTO, the country pledged openness, transparency, and fair competition. But while the world celebrated this supposed progress, Beijing was already executing another plan to create an ecosystem of private companies that in reality operate under the direct control and funding of the Chinese state. Hidden subsidies, tax exemptions, legal shielding, and industrial espionage became their main weapons. The result? Chinese companies were able to sell their products far below real cost, suffocating international competitors and capturing massive shares of the global market. This isn't free trade. It's economic domination disguised as globalization. As developed countries deindustrialized, China absorbed every link of the global supply chain. The game was being won before the other players even knew a new game had started. When Donald Trump launched his infamous trade war against China, the world laughed. He's destroying international trade. They said, it's economic suicide. But as the years went by, the tone began to shift. European, Asian, and even Latin American leaders started recognizing the deep-rooted effects of China's manipulation. Trump's trade war wasn't just a spontaneous reaction. It was a desperate attempt to stop a system that had already embedded itself into the core of Western economies. It wasn't about taxing Chinese products. It was about salvaging what was left of America's industrial capacity and protecting the jobs slipping away. It was about economic survival. The cost of inaction is now visible in shuttered factories, ghost towns across the U.S., and an entire generation of workers replaced by state-subsidized production across the ocean. The Chinese Communist Party doesn't play by the same rules. Their plan is systemic, strategic, and invisible to most eyes. While the world thinks it's competing with private companies, it's actually facing a corporate army organized by the state. The game is rigged from the start. Companies receive unlimited credit, subsidized raw materials, and complete protection from domestic competition. This allows them to export goods at artificially low prices, making fair competition impossible. It's like a marathon where one runner starts 10 miles ahead. The trap is clear. First, low prices lure consumers. Then, competition is crushed. And finally, dependency takes hold. By the time you realize it, your economy has been infiltrated, your industry dismantled, and your economic sovereignty traded for convenience. Have you ever wondered why everything we use seems to come from China? Shirts, sneakers, phones, toys. Even your phone charger was likely made in a Chinese factory. That's no coincidence. It's national policy. Beijing turned the country into the world's factory with surgical precision. The cost? Millions of lost jobs in the US, Brazil, Mexico, and Europe. Entire industries dismantled. Once thriving towns turned into abandoned zones. What seemed like market efficiency was actually the deliberate replacement of Western productive capacity. The West traded its manufacturing power for lower retail prices, a deal that now looks unsustainable. Because the moment China decides to shut off the tap, the world stops. This is power that doesn't rely on tanks or missiles, but on boxes and shipping containers. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed this brutal dependency. When the virus spread, the world woke up to a chilling truth. Almost all medical supplies, masks, gloves, ventilators, came from China. And China knew it. The country used this position to negotiate power, influence, and even political favors, offering what the world needed in exchange for silence. That moment proved this wasn't just trade. It was an economic weapon. If another global crisis strikes tomorrow, are we ready? The answer still is no, because the infrastructure of production remains in the same hands. And while the West debates internal politics, Beijing advances unshaken, consolidating its role as a global supplier of everything essential to human survival. But China's growth isn't sustainable, and that's part of the problem. For decades, the country built ghost cities with massive, empty skyscrapers just to inflate its GDP. When the real estate bubble started to burst, the government doubled down on exports. The result? A tsunami of products flooding the global market at impossible prices. Overproduction turned into dumping. Entire countries were swallowed by cheap imports, destroying local producers and distorting regional economies. It's like a silent avalanche. You don't hear it coming, but by the time you notice, everything is buried. China is offloading its excess production onto the entire world, even if it means taking a loss. Because the goal isn't profit, it's domination. And when profit is no longer priority, competition becomes impossible. You probably bought something from Shine, Shopee, or AliExpress. A t-shirt for $2, earrings for $1, free shipping. Sounds harmless, maybe even convenient. But this is part of a deeper psychological strategy. Impulsive consumption driven by unreal prices creates dependency. People buy not because they need to, but because it's too cheap to resist. At scale, this behavior is eroding local retail, small brands, and jobs in design and production. Every click on buy now is a micro attack on your country's real economy. And the scariest part? Neither Shine nor Shopee needs to be profitable, because that's not the point. They exist to consolidate dominance, train the consumer, and annihilate competing markets. The war isn't in the tanks, it's in your shopping cart. Even when sanctions, tariff, and trade barriers are put in place, China has a final trick: triangulation. Products are routed through countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, or India, then exported to the world under a different origin. It's like laundering goods, a process known as transshipment. The case of honey is symbolic. Chinese honey, banned in many countries due to fraud, started being sold as Vietnamese honey. This is an exception. It's standard practice, from steel to electronics. China uses this logistical engineering to sidestep the rules and maintain its dominance. And while governments scramble to react, China is already 2 moves ahead. It's a chess game, and the West is still learning how to move the pieces. Meanwhile, the market is filled with mass-origin products, hiding a network of control beyond the consumer's perception. Behind all of this is a completely manipulated financial system. China's biggest banks don't operate like private institutions. They're direct arms of the Communist Party. That means companies can run at a loss for decades without any risk of collapse. They receive virtually unlimited credit if deemed strategic. Meanwhile, Western companies must make profits, pay taxes, satisfy shareholders, and follow strict regulations. How do you compete with a rival that has no energy limits, no rules, and total protection? This system completely distorts the global marketplace and makes fair competition impossible. China isn't just selling things cheaper, it's rewriting the rules of international economics. And with each passing day, more sectors fall into the trap. Now, the world is starting to wake up. The European Union is launching investigations into Chinese subsidies. The United States is tightening trade policies. Brazil, Mexico, India, they're all beginning to impose trade barriers and rethink agreements. The battle is just beginning, but maybe it's already too late. What China built over 2 decades doesn't disappear overnight. We're now facing a consolidated economic empire that controls supply chains, global logistics, consumer platforms, and international credit. The question is no longer if the West will respond, but whether it still can. If you understand the gravity of this, comment the word alert. And if you want to learn how to protect your assets in an age of global economic manipulation, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because in the new global power map, those who don't understand rules have already lost the game.